Imagine a time when the Bible was not read inside grand stone temples, but within small communities scattered across the Egyptian desert. Between the 3rd and 7th centuries, monks and scribes from Upper Egypt began translating biblical texts into Sahidic Coptic, one of the most important dialects of the Coptic language. This translation did not happen by chance. It reflected a real need to make the scriptures accessible to people who no longer spoke the Greek used by urban elites. One of the most significant centers of this tradition was the so-called White Monastery, associated with the monastic leader Shanut, where manuscripts were copied with remarkable care. These codices reveal that biblical reading was part of the monks' daily discipline, alongside manual labor and continuous prayer. Paleographic studies indicate that many of these texts were organized in codex form, an important innovation that replaced older scrolls and made the circulation of scripture easier. The Psalms held a central place in desert spirituality. Psalm 88 in particular has drawn the attention of modern scholars because of the contrast between divine promise and human suffering. In commentaries preserved in Coptic texts and in Greek parallels, it becomes clear that Egyptian monks connected this tension to the spiritual experience, often described as the dark night of the soul, a period of inner trial mentioned in several ascetic writings. Unlike purely academic interpretations, monastic reading was deeply practical. Monks linked to the traditions of Anthony the Great and Pachomius encouraged the repetition of the Psalms as a tool for spiritual endurance. For them, biblical lament was not a sign of weak faith, but a legitimate way to express pain before God. This perspective also appears in monastic letters preserved in Coptic fragments discovered in regions such as Nag Hammadi and around Akhmim. During Roman and later Byzantine rule, Christian Egypt experienced intense theological debates, especially after the Council of Chalcedon in the 5th century. Communities that used Sahidic Coptic began to affirm their cultural and religious identity through the translation of scripture. In this way, manuscripts were not only sacred texts, but also symbols of linguistic and spiritual resilience. Modern researchers analyze these documents in institutions such as the Coptic Museum in Cairo and European libraries that preserve fragments acquired during the 19th century. Comparisons between Sahidic and Greek versions reveal subtle linguistic variations that help scholars understand how early Christians interpreted themes such as suffering, faithfulness, and messianic hope. Rather than altering biblical content, these communities emphasized spiritual nuances that resonated with life in the desert. Today, we know that these translations had a lasting impact on Eastern Christian tradition. The practice of praying the Psalms daily, still common in many monasteries, has direct roots in this period. Sahidic manuscripts remind us that the history of the Bible was not shaped only in major theological centers, but also in silent places where men and women searched for spiritual meaning amid real challenges. Exploring these ancient texts also means understanding how different cultures preserved the same message across centuries. Every fragment discovered reveals a story of faith lived in a tangible way, a faith that crossed deserts, political crises, and cultural changes without losing its essence. If you enjoy discovering lesser-known biblical history, ancient manuscripts, and research grounded in real historical studies, follow the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Here you'll find in-depth analysis, documented curiosities, and clear explanations about ancient texts that still inspire reflection today. Subscribe now and continue exploring every new discovery with us.